The breaking point. The distress signal from Colony Eden 7 reached Earth at 3:47 a.m., Greenwich Mean Time. By the time anyone could respond, 400,000 human colonists were already dead. The Craven Empire had struck again, and this time they had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Commander Michael Harrison stood on the observation deck of Station Prime, watching the rescue ships return with what few survivors they could find. The children they brought back had hollow eyes and stories that would haunt the galaxy forever. The Craven had not just raided the colony for resources. They had made sport of hunting families through the streets, broadcasting the terror across their empire as entertainment. For 70 years, humanity had extended the hand of friendship to every species they encountered among the stars. When the Altarians needed food during their Great Famine, human ships delivered millions of tons of grain without asking for payment. When the Nexari plague threatened to wipe out an entire civilization, human doctors worked around the clock to develop a cure. Even when the first Craven raids began 20 years ago, humans responded with offers of trade agreements and peace treaties. Ambassador Sarah Chen had spent her entire career believing that diplomacy could solve any conflict. She had negotiated peace between the warring Zelkari factions. She had prevented 3 interstellar wars through careful mediation. But as she stood before the Craven War Council, she knew her faith in peaceful solutions was about to die. The Craven overlord Thrax lounged on his bone throne, surrounded by the skulls of conquered species. His forearms gestured dismissively as Sarah spoke. The translator converted his clicking mandibles into words that chilled her blood. Humans are prey animals pretending to be predators. Your species exists because we allow it. Your colonies are farms where we harvest what we need. This is the natural order. Sarah's hands trembled as she delivered Earth's final diplomatic message. The United Earth government offers you one last chance. Return our people. Pay reparations for the colonies you've destroyed. Sign a non-aggression pact. This is not a negotiation. This is an ultimatum. The laughter from the Craven Council echoed through the chamber. Thrax leaned forward, his compound eyes reflecting Sarah's image 1,000 times. Run back to your soft world, little human. Tell them we are coming for Earth next. Your species will make excellent slaves once we break your spirit completely. The emergency session of the Earth Council convened within hours of Sarah's return. President Maria Rodriguez had aged 10 years in the last 10 months, watching colony after colony fall to alien aggression. The other council members looked equally worn down by decades of trying to maintain peace while their people suffered. General David Thompson had been waiting 40 years for this moment. The old soldier had fought in Earth's final war before humanity reached the stars. He had helped draft the peace protocols that governed human interaction with alien species, but he had also insisted on maintaining secret military preparations just in case. The Craven Empire consists of 47 systems, General Thompson reported to the Council. They have approximately 3,000 warships, most of them converted cargo vessels with basic weapons. Their technology is crude but effective. They rely on terror and overwhelming numbers. He paused, letting the weight of his next words sink in. We can destroy them completely within 6 months. President Rodriguez looked around the table at her advisors. Each face showed the same grim determination. Humanity had tried to be the galaxy's peacekeepers. They had shared their technology freely, helped struggling civilizations, and always chose mercy over vengeance. That time was over. Send the activation codes, she ordered. Every hidden fleet, every dormant weapons platform, every sleeper ship. We've positioned throughout human space. It's time to remind the galaxy why our ancestors were apex predators on Earth. Admiral Marcus Webb received his orders while patrolling the outer colonies in what the galaxy believed was a science vessel. The UES Discovery had been cataloging stellar phenomena for 15 years, according to official records. In reality, it was a battleship disguised with sensor-masking technology that humans had developed in secret. Marcus gathered his crew in the main briefing room. These men and women had trained in secret for their entire careers, maintaining the facade of peaceful explorers while preparing for a war they hoped would never come. Ladies and gentlemen, the masquerade is over. In 1 hour, we will drop our disguise and proceed to the Craven slave markets at Terminus Station. Our orders are simple. No slavers survive. No slave ships escape. Every human prisoner comes home. Lieutenant Commander Jennifer Wu had been posing as an astrophysicist for 12 years. In reality, she was one of humanity's finest tactical officers. She pulled up the battle plans she had been refining since her first day aboard. Sir, I've identified 17 critical weak points in Terminus Station's defenses. Their shields can't handle focused gamma bursts. Their armor is vulnerable to our kinetic penetrators. They've never faced weapons like ours because we've kept them hidden. Across human space, similar scenes played out on 200 ships. The galaxy had seen human cargo vessels and hospital ships and research stations for decades. They had never suspected that each one contained enough firepower to devastate a planet. Humanity had learned from history that the best way to maintain peace was to be prepared for war, but they had hoped never to use these preparations. The Craven were about to discover what happened when you pushed a patient species too far. They had mistaken human kindness for weakness, human mercy for inability to fight. They had forgotten that humans were descended from persistence hunters who could track prey for days without rest. They had never considered that the same species that could show infinite compassion could also display limitless fury when protecting their own. Captain Elena Volkov commanded the strike force that would hit the first Craven military installation. Her ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, immediately launching weapons that the Craven had never seen before. Antimatter torpedoes vaporized 3 enemy cruisers before their crews even knew they were under attack. Particle beam arrays cut through Craven shields like they were made of paper. The Craven commander's last transmission was picked up by monitoring stations across 3 sectors. "This is impossible. Humans don't have weapons like these. Humans don't fight like this." His signal cut off as his command ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light that could be seen from the planet's surface. Within 72 hours, every major Craven military base in 3 systems was gone. The attacks were precise, coordinated, and devastating. Human forces struck simultaneously across thousands of light years, demonstrating a level of strategic planning that the galaxy had never witnessed. The prey had revealed themselves to be predators of the highest order. The liberation of Terminus Station became a legend that would be told for generations. Captain Volkov's forces disabled the station's defenses in 12 minutes. Marine units led by Colonel James Park stormed the slave pens, finding 30,000 humans and other species in conditions that defied description. The Craven guards who surrendered were the lucky ones. Those who resisted discovered that human soldiers who had trained for decades in secret were not interested in taking prisoners. As news of humanity's transformation spread across the galaxy, reactions varied wildly. The Altarians, remembering human kindness during their famine, immediately declared support for Earth. The Nexari, whose entire species owed their survival to human doctors, offered their advanced shield technology to the human fleet. But other species, those who had grown comfortable taking advantage of human generosity, began to panic. Ambassador Chen stood once again before the Galactic Assembly, but this time she wore a military uniform instead of diplomatic robes. For 70 years, humanity chose peace. We chose to help rather than harm, to build rather than destroy. We asked for nothing but friendship in return. Instead, we received raids, slavery, and the murder of our children. She paused, looking at each alien representative. We are done asking. We are done negotiating. Any species that has harmed human civilians has one choice: surrender unconditionally or face the consequences. The Craven Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for 3 centuries, fell in 6 weeks. Not 6 months as General Thompson had predicted, but 6 weeks. The human fleets moved through Craven space like a plague of locusts, leaving nothing but debris fields where military installations once stood. They freed millions of slaves from dozens of species. They dismantled an empire that everyone had thought was invincible. The reckoning overlord Thrax could not comprehend what he was seeing on his tactical displays. His empire of 47 systems had been reduced to 12 in just over a month. The humans were not following any conventional military doctrine. They were not seeking to occupy territory or capture resources. They were simply erasing every trace of Craven military power from existence. "How many ships do they have?" Thrax demanded from his intelligence officer. The officer's 4 hands shook as he reviewed the data. "Overlord, we initially detected 200 human warships, but more keep appearing. Ships we thought were cargo haulers are revealing weapons. Stations we believed were research outposts are launching fighter squadrons. We estimate they have at least 800 capital ships, possibly more." Thrax's compound eyes dimmed in disbelief. The humans had been hiding a fleet larger than most galactic empires possessed. They had spent decades pretending to be peaceful while secretly preparing for total war. The deception was so complete that no intelligence service in the galaxy had detected it. The Craven's desperate counterattack came at dawn on the 43rd day of the war. Thrax gathered his remaining 1,000 ships and threw them at the human forces surrounding his throne world. He expected a brutal slugfest, ship against ship, the kind of battle the Craven had won dozens of times before. Captain Elena Volkov watched the Craven fleet approaching and felt no fear, only cold determination. She had studied every battle the Craven had ever fought. They relied on overwhelming numbers and psychological warfare. They expected enemies to panic when faced with a massive assault. They had never fought humans who had spent generations preparing for this exact moment. "All ships execute Thermopylae Protocol," Volkov ordered. The human fleet appeared to retreat, drawing the Craven forces into a carefully prepared kill zone. Hidden weapon platforms that had been deployed days earlier came online. Minefields activated. Electronic warfare systems jammed Craven communications. In seconds, the 1,000-ship fleet found itself trapped in a 3-dimensional cage of death. Lieutenant Wu coordinated the attack with surgical precision. "Target their command ships first. Remove their leadership, then focus on their engine systems. I want them helpless, not destroyed. We need some of them alive to stand trial." The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 800 Craven ships were debris, 150 were disabled and captured, and 50 had fled into deep space where human hunter-killer teams were already waiting for them. The human fleet had lost 3 ships, all of them deliberately sacrificed to draw the Craven into the trap. Colonel Park led the ground assault on the Craven throne world. His Marines had trained for this mission in virtual reality for 20 years, memorizing every corridor of the palace complex, every defensive position, every possible escape route. The Craven Royal Guard, who had never lost a battle in their entire history, were overwhelmed in minutes by humans using tactics and weapons they could not comprehend. Park found Overlord Thrax trying to escape through a secret tunnel that human intelligence had identified years ago. The alien warlord who had ordered the deaths of millions now cowered before a single human soldier. "Please," Thrax begged, his universal translator converting his clicks into words. "We can negotiate. I have wealth beyond measure. I have information about other threats to your species." Park thought about the children from Eden 7, about the families torn apart, about the humans who had died believing their government was too weak to protect them. "You said humans were prey animals. You were wrong. We're persistence predators. We just chose to be peaceful. That was our gift to the galaxy, and you threw it away." The liberation of the Craven slave worlds revealed the true extent of the Empire's atrocities. 15 million beings from 30 different species had been enslaved. Entire generations had been born in captivity. The human medical corps worked around the clock treating injuries and trauma that shocked even veteran doctors. Dr. Timothy Chen, no relation to Ambassador Sarah Chen, established field hospitals on 17 different worlds. "Some of these people have been slaves for 50 years, he reported to Earth Command. "Children who have never known freedom. Species we've never encountered before. The Craven were monsters, but they kept meticulous records. We're finding purchase orders for beings sold to other empires." This information triggered the second phase of humanity's response. President Rodriguez addressed the Galactic Assembly with a list of 32 species that had purchased human slaves from the Craven. "You have 72 hours to return every human you bought. You will pay compensation to each victim. You will sign treaties guaranteeing this never happens again. Refuse, and you will discover that our patience with the Craven was not unique." The Vorthan Confederacy was the first to refuse. They controlled 6 systems and had a fleet of 400 ships. They had been purchasing human slaves for 15 years, using them for dangerous mining operations. The Vorthan Prime Minister announced that his civilization would not be intimidated by human threats. Admiral Webb personally led the assault on the Vorthan Confederacy. The operation took 18 hours. When it ended, the Vorthan fleet was gone, their slave facilities were liberated, and their government was in ruins. Webb broadcast a simple message to the galaxy. 29 species remaining, 70 hours left. Within a day, every other species on the list had agreed to humanity's terms. Millions of slaves were freed. Trillions of credits in compensation were paid. Treaties were signed with provisions that would have seemed absurd just months earlier. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's transformation from shepherd to wolf, and no one wanted to test their resolve further. The trials of the surviving Craven leadership were broadcast across the galaxy. For the first time, many species learned the full extent of what humans had endured while maintaining their peaceful facade. Videos of destroyed colonies, testimony from survivors, evidence of atrocities that had been hidden for decades. The galaxy watched in shame as they realized they had stood by while humanity suffered in silence. Judge Patricia Nakamura, presiding over the trials, delivered a verdict that would reshape galactic law. The Craven Empire is found guilty of genocide, slavery, and crimes against sentience. Their military caste will be imprisoned for life. Their civilian population will be relocated and monitored for 3 generations. Their throne world will be converted into a memorial for their victims. Let this judgment serve as a warning. Humanity's kindness is a choice, not a weakness. As the human fleets returned to their disguised positions, Ambassador Chen delivered one final address to the Galactic Assembly. For 70 years we showed you our best nature. We helped without asking for reward. We healed without seeking payment. We protected without demanding loyalty. That offer remains open to those who approach us in good faith. She paused, letting her words sink in. But to those who would harm our people, who would mistake our compassion for cowardice, know this: we are the children of Earth. We conquered our world before we reached the stars. We survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that would have destroyed lesser species. We chose to be kind. We can choose differently. The galaxy would never be the same. Species that had once dismissed humans as weak now treated them with careful respect. Trade agreements were honored scrupulously. Border disputes were settled peacefully. No one wanted to be the next example of what happened when humanity's patience ran out. Captain Volkov stood on the bridge of her ship, now once again disguised as a research vessel. Her crew had returned to their cover identities as scientists and explorers. But beneath the peaceful exterior, they remained ready. The galaxy had learned that humans could be incredibly kind or terrifyingly fierce, and the choice of which face they showed lay entirely with those they encountered. The war had lasted 49 days. In that time, humanity had dismantled an empire that had stood for 3 centuries, freed millions of slaves, and established themselves as the dominant military power in known space. But their greatest victory was not in what they had destroyed, but in what they had preserved, the option to choose kindness again, backed by the strength to enforce that choice. As Earth's colonies were rebuilt and its people returned home, a new motto spread throughout human space, whispered in bars and schools and shipyards: we are kind by choice, fierce by nature, and patient until we're not. The galaxy had been given a lesson it would not forget. And somewhere in the void between stars, human ships continued their patrols, disguised as explorers and traders, ready to show kindness to friends and fury to foes. The age of human weakness was over. The age of human choice had begun.